right, yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, on this beautiful, sunny Wednesday morning down here in the Low Country. This is A Bettor Morning, brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy, your all-in-one fantasy sports destination. Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, going to spend a few moments with you, getting you ready for the sports day today. Got a few things I want to get off my chest as we are in the middle of the week, preparing for week number 3 of the NFL season. Got a big weekend of college football, about to get into that as well. My girl Heather Klein on the ones and twos. What's shaking, everybody? If you're up rock and rolling with us this morning, drop a little sun or something in the chat to let me know that you are there and active with the fantasy executive. I can give you a shout out. I want to start off today talking about the league's most prestigious individual award. Although we're only 2 weeks into the season, I want to start to give a look at some MVP candidates, like an MVP ladder. We'll call it our Rival Fantasy MVP ladder. How about that? A little brand recognition right there for Rival Fantasy. So I want to get into it, and obviously it'll change throughout the course of the year and stuff like that, and you never know. It'll probably end up coming down to the same people it always comes down to, with one of them being Patrick Mahomes. But coming into the year, Joe Burrow had the shortest odds to win the league's most valuable player award. And listen, I was a guy that was big time into Joe Burrow was coming into and getting ready for an historic season for the Bengals' young signal caller. He got his bag. He's got a loaded team, you know what I'm saying, on the offensive side of the ball. We know how cool Joe Cool is. AFC Championship game, no pressure, already been to the Super Bowl. If it wasn't for Zach Taylor, could already be a Super Bowl champion early in his career. But the calf injury in the preseason, the re-aggravating of the calf injury so far to start the season, and just that offense not looking good has dropped Joe Burrow out the top spot. And to be honest with you, I don't even see him on the main page anymore. He's down there. I'm using odds of DraftKings Sportsbook, so he's down there at 20-1 right now, Joe Burrow. So if you still believe in Joe Burrow this season, you may want to get involved. But this kind of slow start like this has me worried, not to mention this calf strain is the reason why when I'm looking at the MVP market, more than likely I'm not going to be clicking on the odds next to the name Joe Burrow. Now, what I will tell you is the guy at the top of the board right now with the shortest odds is Miami Dolphin quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And listen, Tua has been getting it done so far early in this season. And to Tua's credit, there was times late in the year last year when Tua was the guy who had the shortest MVP odds. Then obviously the concussions and stuff like that, and he dropped out the race. But listen, Tua is a legit MVP candidate. Now, do I really like Tua's? Now, here we go. Now, I talk about Tua. No fantasy executive, no cap Corey. If I see it, I got to say it. But now, when you look at Tua, right, and he has been fantastic this season, the completion percentage is still under 70, which, for the most part, not a bad deal. But the average completion is around 9 yards. That's elite right there. That's almost a first down. And here's the thing about Tua. You know what he has to work with. He has the most dynamic weapon in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. And then your boy Jalen Waddle right behind him on the other side. Ain't too shabby himself. He's got an innovative play caller in Mike McDaniels. And yes, Tua can put up those MVP-type numbers. And the Miami Dolphins can also be a team that can win a good amount of games as well this season. So I think at 6-1, Tua is live. Tua is live. Tua is legit. I would want that completion percentage to creep a little bit closer to 70. But right now, Tua, to be 100% honest with you, even though it's early in the season, we're seeing the young man put up career numbers. So shout out to Tua. 6-1 odds right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I think Tua is a legit MVP candidate. I probably would want to see a little adversity first, right? Now, when I say adversity, I want to see them in some situations where things can get a little bit hairy, where we really got to see the quarterback step up and make a play. Because I don't think that so far we've had to see the quarterback step up and make a play. Like, very good game versus the Chargers, but, the Chargers got an idiot as a head coach. Went into New England and really didn't have no problem. The final score didn't dictate what that game was. When you look at the rest of their schedule, Broncos this weekend in Miami, that's probably a big spot for the Dolphins. I do think the Broncos will keep it close. They go to Buffalo in a couple weeks. That's going to be an interesting one right there, right? So that's where you see how they handle adversity. When they go to Buffalo, they go to Philadelphia, they're home for Kansas City, and they got a late season matchup at Baltimore, and then they close the season out with the Bills. So really, it's going to be those other teams in the AFC East, like Buffalo. It's going to be teams like Kansas City and Baltimore. So, excuse me, we'll we'll see what Tua looks like when he gets in a situation where, you know what I'm saying, where the stakes are a little bit higher than playing against the New England Patriots. Our second shortest odds right now is Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And listen, Mahomes is not off to a dynamic season, but we know what Mahomes is. He's the leader of the team that is more than likely going to be playing in the AFC Championship game. And when you're the quarterback of that juggernaut, him and Andy Reid, really the best duo in football right now. Travis Kelce makes it a trio. So at 7-1, Patrick Mahomes is obviously solid. As long as he is upright and healthy, Patrick Mahomes will be an MVP candidate. He's that kind of player. He's that type of talent. You already know what the real deal with Mahomes is. Now, what Mahomes, unlike Tua, we know how Mahomes handles adversity. We've seen Mahomes have to go on the road in hostile environments. We've seen Mahomes, invite the best team in the conference or the best team in the other conference into his home stadium and put on a performance. And listen, it's not like he's loaded with weapons like Tua. He has Travis Kelce, who probably is the best tight end ever, but really a lot of that action that goes with Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to be an MVP candidate every year for years to come. Now, the guy with the third shortest odds is Josh Allen. Okay, slow down a little bit, right? I'm not a big Josh Allen guy, but the pedigree is there. The Bills are a contender. Pedigree is there. Bad game versus the Jets. Bounced back nicely last week versus the hapless Raiders. TBD on Josh Allen. I'm still to be determined on what Josh Allen is going to be this season. And listen, maybe the only person I've been harder on than Josh Allen is Dak Prescott. But then again, some people may have some different opinions. But truth of the matter is this. The jury is still out on Josh Allen as far as I'm concerned. So I still want to wait and see what Josh Allen is going to bring to the table. Coming up at plus 850 on the DraftKings Sportsbook is Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. Now, I understand that we all must genuflect at the altar of Jalen Hurts. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Last year, when the season started, I did not genuflect at the altar of Jalen Hurts, and people were very upset with me. You know what I'm saying? So let me make sure I genuflect at the altar of Jalen Hurts before I start talking about the Philadelphia Eagles signal caller, who for all intents and purposes is the best quarterback in the NFC, not just the NFC East, in the NFC. He had a fantastic year last year, running and throwing the football. And so far this year, he's off to a similar start. Now, this year, there is one thing. The yards per attempt is down. It's only been 2 games, but the yards per attempt is a career low. But the completion percentage right now is a career high. So we're going to level that one off right there. He's in an offense that's fit and tailored for him. The problem is he doesn't really have, his marquee matchups will come versus the Dallas Cowboys. So it's really how he plays in those games right there. If he can stay healthy, it looks like, listen, I'll be honest with you, Philadelphia hasn't looked great this year. Now, I understand, please forgive me for not genuflecting at the altar of Jalen Hurts. All I'm saying is, through 2 games, Philadelphia has not been great. But I'm not going to go down my soapbox and talk about Jalen Hurts because I don't have the time for the inboxes and the ats and the texts and all of that if you don't genuflect at the altar of Jalen Hurts. Despite the Philadelphia Eagles not genuflecting at that altar coming into last year, I had to do so. But you know what? MVP candidate last year. If he didn't get hurt, he would have won the award. Jalen Hurts will be in the mix down the stretch. I have no reason to say he's not. Now, so far, of the first 4 names I've given you, the only person that I would put a couple of the fantasy executives' hard-earned dollars, they're few, but they're hard-earned, would be Tua at 6-1. Now, they want to get into the part of the conversations where some guys where I might take a shot. And I want to start with who, for my opinion, is the best players through 2 weeks of the season. And I know I talked about him last week, about his fantasy numbers, but you can't deny the wins and losses. I believe it's 50 and 18 as a starter right now. And that's Lamar Jackson at 12-1. At 12-1, I would say that Lamar Jackson is currently my MVP favorite. Now to put a couple dollars down on Jackson. I think in this new offense, which we saw open up last week, get Mark Andrews back in the mix. Now you got Zay Flowers, who can roam the middle of the field where Lamar Jackson likes to throw the football as well. So I look at Lamar Jackson right now as my favorite MVP candidate. Oh, what do you know? It's Lamar Jackson as my favorite MVP candidate. So right now at 12-1, I would definitely get in on Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is a legit MVP candidate coming into the season. At 15-1 is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott will be judged off of not turning the football over. Dak Prescott will be judged of how the Dallas Cowboys play versus the 49ers and the Eagles. If he does well in those two games, I could see him moving up. The problem is, I'll tell you what the problem is a little bit later on from now. Let me continue to go through this list. I'm about to tell you there is an obstacle that Dak Prescott's going to have to jump in order if he wants to be an MVP candidate. Also at 15-1 is Trevor Lawrence. I love Trevor Lawrence coming into the season. I don't know if he's an MVP guy, to be honest with you. I think he takes the next step. At 15-1, if you want to put a couple dollars on that, I can get behind that. But I can see Trevor Lawrence being a guy who will be in the race a little bit. I'm not sure that he can compete with the top quarterbacks in the AFC. As a matter of fact, we saw it when Kansas City brought really their B team into Jacksonville this week and got a win, and Lawrence wasn't great in that game. Justin Herbert at 18-1 is the biggest scam and fraud on the face of the earth. Justin Herbert is an extremely talented quarterback, but he's nowhere near an MVP player yet. Brock Purdy, 22-1, having a good season, has a good team around him. Not saying that he's an MVP candidate. Deshaun Watson is 28-1. Deshaun Watson should be 200,000-1. He stinks. He is nowhere. They take him off the list. Now, I go to that right there. Finally, though, Tyreek Hill at 50-1 is interesting, even though I don't think they'll ever give the award to a receiver. Now, if he gets 2,000 yards, he'll be the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. But the truth of the matter is this, is that I just don't see the NFL wanting Tyreek Hill to be the guy who wins their most prestigious individual award. I do not think that will happen. But also at 50-1, and this is where it gets interesting, the reason why Dak Prescott is not really going to be a candidate is because Dak Prescott's teammate, Micah Parson, is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys. And a defensive player has not won the NFL's most prestigious award in God knows how long. Since Lawrence Taylor did it, I believe Taylor did it in 84. Taylor was phenomenal that season. And we've seen Micah Parsons get off to these blazing hot starts. Then he'll tend to cool down. If Parsons can go through it all season, he'll easily win the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year award. But this 50-1, put it like this. If 50-1 at some points this season gets to 10-1, then we got something on our hands. I even say if it gets to 15-1, we have something on our hands. I think Parson is a legit candidate this year, and I think he knocks Dak Prescott out because I do believe that Micah Parson is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys. He is really, truly the leader of that team, if you ask me. So I'm going to go with Micah Parson as a legit MVP candidate. But right now, my guys would be Jackson, Parson. That's really it. And Hurts maybe and Tua. But right now, it's Jackson for me as my leading candidate. And I like Micah Parson as a long shot. I also would Christian McCaffrey could get in the mix as well. Never really see a running back do it. Adrian Peterson came close a couple times. But really is Tua, Mahomes, Jackson, that big three in the AFC. And then I'll take a little sprinkle a little bit further down the road with Micah Parsons. Fantasy footballers, what I want you to do is start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarms All-Pro subscription. Get all the Week 3 DFS content and picks for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL and check out their Thursday Night Football, best bets and slow down slate strategies. Now, where are we at? Dylan Frank. What's up? What up, Dylan? Just spent 80% of fab on Jerome Ford. Got him for trade value. Would never take a player to trade him. I have McCaffrey and James Cook. Would you package him and James Cook for a guy like Bijan? It's the Chubb owner who's got Bijan. I think that's interesting way to look at it. But let me tell you something. If you got your own forward, keep him. Because running back depth in fantasy football is here today and it's gone tomorrow. You could have came into this weekend literally with Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb in your starting lineup. And you could have thought your running back depth was straight. And then by 7 o'clock Sunday evening, you don't have no running backs. So I'd be very careful, especially when you spent that kind of fab capital, to go ahead and just trade that player. Keep him for depth, if anything. But if you want to make the trade, I have no problem with that. My man, J.M. Pemba. So what up, John? Feels like Dallas D will get too much credit for that. There you go right there. That's basically what I just said. That Micah Parson is too much of a dog. And really the guy that people look at as the best player on that team for Dak Prescott to get serious MVP considerations. And then, Dak Prescott still has this turnover. Dak Prescott is not going to be validated until Dak Prescott takes a snap in the NFC Championship game. That's what Dak Prescott is. Until then, I don't hear nothing about Dak Prescott. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. He is playing. He hasn't turned the ball over yet this year. He's playing better and more efficiently. Let me make sure I'm fair to Mr. Prescott. All right, got a big weekend of college football coming up. Couple big matchups, and of course, I don't have them in front of me. Oh boy, the fantasy executive. What did I do with that sheet? All right, so check it out. But I can tell you right off the rip some of the games that we'll be keeping an eye on this week. Obviously, we got the big one coming up this weekend between. Let's start at noon Eastern time. I got to find this, y'all. Hold on one second. Here we go. Florida State and Clemson. Florida State travels to Clemson. Florida State's a 2-point road favorite at Clemson. I was trying to think this morning, when's the last time Clemson been a home underdog? Well, it's happening this week. I like Florida State. I think Florida State's the best team in college football right now. Then they go into Clemson and get the victory. But here's the thing. This is a mental thing. Clemson has owned Florida State for years now. So you got to beat, not only do you have to be better than Florida, not only does Florida State be better than Clemson, they got to be mentally prepared to go in there and slay a giant they haven't slayed yet. I think they get it done this weekend. Obviously, you got the big matchup, Colorado and Oregon. That's going to be 3:30 Eastern time on ABC from Eugene, Oregon. Colorado is back to being an underdog. This is where Coach Prime wants to be, a big underdog on the road. Perfect situation for Coach Prime right here. Listen, I'm not sleeping on Deion Sanders. Take the 21 points and sprinkle the money line. Son can pull it off. Big-time quarterback matchup in this game with Bo Nix versus Shedeur Sanders. Two dudes in the Heisman Trophy conversation. You're going to see the Heisman Trophy thing start to shake out this week. Another big Pac-12 matchup going on at the same time as Colorado and Oregon. You better try to get a split screen and keep an eye on this one. It's a 22nd ranked UCLA Bruins versus Utah. The Utes. Utah laying 4.5 at home. Utah at home is very tough. I would lay the 4. I don't lay half points. I would lay the 4 with Utah. I think they get a victory. You don't realize how tough Utah is to play until you've seen a game from Utah. They're a very tough team to beat when they're in that building. I think Chip Kelly will have his team ready. I want you to keep an eye on, this is going to be a big college football quarterback weekend, but keep an eye on this kid at UCLA, Dante Moore. He's a true freshman. When I'm telling you this kid is legit, he is legit. When it gets time for him to come out, it's going to be a tanker-palooza. Write this name down. My man Lenny Melnick would say, etch this name on your kitchen table. His name is Dante Moore, true freshman quarterback for UCLA. He could really do some things for his Heisman potential, even in his freshman year, if he can go into Utah and get a big victory for the Bruins. Speaking of quarterbacks, Ole Miss and Alabama, number 15 versus 13. Alabama needs a season-saving win right here. The problem is Bama's quarterback situation coming into the season was looking shaky. Now that we're 3 weeks in, it looks real shaky. Bama's outside the top 10 this early in the year for the first time in forever. Jalen Milroe not getting it done. Ty Simpson not getting it done. It's just a tough go for right now for Alabama. But I trust in Nick Saban. He'll continue to improve this team. It's no way I would lay 7 with Bama. Probably just be a game I keep an eye on. That Bama quarterback situation, though, is tough. Finally, the big game of the night, the National Broadcast Company rolls out their college football team. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, number 9 ranked. They welcome in the 6th ranked Ohio State Bruins. Notre Dame is a 3-point home dog in this one. buy the hook, take the 3.5 with Notre Dame and sprinkle the money line. I think after this weekend, Sam Hartman is not the front runner. He'll be second behind Caleb Williams. I think he puts his stamp on this season with a big-time victory in South Bend over Notre Dame. I think Marcus Freeman will lead that crew to a victory over Ohio State this weekend, and I think this will launch Notre Dame into the college football playoff conversation. So I expect a big year coming up from the Fighting Irish. I'm about to call them the Nittany Lions. They got a big game versus Iowa, too, this weekend, but I do like Sam Hartman and Notre Dame to get the win. All right, so there you go. Dylan say, I agree. I have Fields and Goddard. Would you package them with Ford for an upgrade stack for Lamar and Mark Andrews? If you're in a 12-team home league, do you really need a stack to win that league? But if that's what you want, I have no issue with that. Fields and Goddard, package them with Ford for an upgrade stack like Lamar and Mark Andrews. I'm cool with that too if you want to go for that stack. Lamar's fantasy numbers tend to slide back and forth a little bit too much, but you got to do a better job than Justin Fields. So I can agree that being a play you need to make because Lamar will get it done. But if you want to go for a top quarterback, yeah, I have no issues with Lamar. I have no issue with that trade right there. I just would think, like I said, I'd be very wary of spending 80% on Fab and then getting rid of that player. So listen, shout out to everybody. Don't forget, coming up next is Sportstopia. And then, of course, I move from that screen. Sportstopia, Fantasy, Fire, and Ice MLB edition for the lovely and talented Heather Klein. It's your boy, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, wishing